Hey everybody, welcome to Insight Radio. I am your host, Danielle Egnew, and you are a fly on the wall to everywhere. I hope you are doing very, very well. I know that our COVID numbers in the United States are continuing to rise, so I hope you are continuing to stay safe. You know, if we all pull together, gang, we can get a handle on this. It's just going to take every single one of us doing our part. I mean, just straight up. So I hope that you're well. I hope that your family is well. And I hope that you're hanging in there. You know, we're barreling down to the end of this very long election cycle. And here we are, and we're in October. And one of the things about October is that it's just crunching down to the time when we all cast our votes on November 3rd. And of course, what's so interesting about this time frame is that we've got such a crazy cacophony of disinformation, and it's really been an earmarker of this particular presidency is misinformation, disinformation. It's just Donald Trump's style. You know, he's that New Yorker guy who loves to spin a big yarn, and I get it. If he's your crazy uncle at a barbecue, it gets a little tougher when you're the president of the United States. People begin to fact check you and whatnot. Yet the supporters of the president, they don't have any problem with the yarns. They generally believe them. And so it's been just such an interesting time frame to watch all of this, you know, come together. And really, I've got to think about back in 2016. In 2016, we had all the Russian actors that were getting online with these disinformation campaigns that were fierce. And this was kind of back really before Americans were paying attention to as much information as we should have been paying attention to, like URLs and all kinds of very important things that nobody was really looking at that time, sadly. So here we are with all this disinformation hitting the airwaves starting in 2016 with the, abc.com / or abc.news./ something.com. So we just weren't paying attention to the URLs back then. And that's how a lot of this disinformation was spread around. And then you take it one step further than that, and you have a pretty hefty continuation of disinformation that gets going in 2017 with an organization called QAnon, right? And I'm sure you've probably heard about this. There's so many people that talk about QAnon, and I think its little saying is where we go one, we go all. And so it's this big conspiracy secret group kind of dealio on the internet that has started out being a really buried kind of weird InfoWars sort of conspiracy message board, basically, and then got blown into all kinds of craziness after that. And so there's always this ongoing question of who is QAnon, what is QAnon, and who started QAnon. And really, QAnon, when I look into it through the psychic ethers, it was started by the same Russian disinformation actors. And it's really interesting, gang, because if what you do is you track energy signatures and you track communication styles, like I do, that's what I do for a living. And I happen, of course, I'm focusing on angels and I'm focusing on other beings. Yet you can also get a pretty good clock and a pretty good track on cultures and cultural voices. And what I think is so interesting is if we go back to the original QAnon posts and we start looking at the supposed initial Q person who popped up online and was talking about this calm before the storm, and there was this whole buildup, right? I mean, really, QAnon is a brilliant screenplay if you think about it. And there was this whole buildup that was about, oh my God, Donald Trump is going to flush thousands of pedophiles that are part of the deep state cabal out of Washington, D.C. and out of Hollywood. And they were all these cabal members, were all parts of supposedly this satanic child molestation group. And I mean, I'm having a hard time keeping a straight face because there are people in the United States that really believe this. And I've got some dear, beautiful, amazing, elevated, intelligent friends that this resonates with. They believe that Tom Hanks is a pedophile and all of these things. I have many friends who believe that. So it's an odd position to be in because, hey, it's America, gang. We get to believe in whatever tooth fairy we want to. I get to believe in my tooth fairy. You get to believe in your tooth fairy. There's people out there that think I am utterly insane because I talk about talking to aliens, okay? So, we're going to have somebody who thinks you're crazy no matter what. Yet, my podcast today is on the crazy QAnon phenomenon, because what we're looking at here with QAnon is a fascinating study, not only in consciousness, but a study in how we as human beings are able to move forward with urban myth and with fear, and how something that isn't true can literally become a narrative that drives people to violence. And I think that QAnon is a really, really important lesson in manifestation, quite honestly, because we're going to go back to, and again, this is my psychic peek on all of this. We're going to go back to the Russian disinformation actors that pretended to be one person that were acting under the auspice of being Q, which supposedly was this insider in the government, and Q is coming out to tell all these secret stories and all these things. So if we look culturally at Russia, there is a tone that even the very best Russian disinformation actors have, because these folks were not raised in America. They may have lived here for 30, 40 years. They may be great spies. Yet that when it comes down to tone, the Russian element, the Russian, I would say, info actors are completely identifiable. And I'm going to tell you how you can figure out who they are online, and I think you'll have fun doing that. So one of the easiest ways to find tone in a Russian actor online is that you have to remember these are brilliant folks. And I have to sort of appreciate the Russians in a big way. I have to tell you. I know I should be mad at them for messing with our election and all these other things. Yet, gang, I've said it once and I'll say it a million times. Russia did not make us believe all of this ridiculous misinformation. We Americans swallowed up the gossip and the Pizzagate and all the craziness that doesn't even exist. We ate it right on up, okay? So the disinformation campaign, Pizzagate was sort of a troll campaign. That again, we're talking actors that make this stuff up and put it out there and cause chaos. And I can just see these Russian people sitting somewhere with a pizza and a pop and just laughing, posting this stuff online, and just, I can see it. I can watch it. And there's going to be a pizza parlor, and Hillary Clinton is going to be selling children out of it. And they're all dying laughing. I can just completely see the whole thing. So one of the ways that you can really identify some, I guess you could say, foreign voicing in the original QAnon narrative and the QAnon stuff is that the original stuff, which, by the way, got jumped right on top of by conspiratists and, soldier of fortune devotees. And there's a particular sect of human that loves a conspiracy, and they're sure they're out to get us. And look, people, there are some serious wacko things that the government does, okay? However, the big cabal smackdown, the giant sex ring of Satan-worshiping, children-sacrificing people in Hollywood, that's not quite a thing, okay? And I know it's really easy to believe that celebrities would be that weird. I'm not saying there's not celebrities that have been with way younger people than they should have. I am not saying there's not weirdos out there in Hollywood that do weird things. Yet, one of the easiest ways to find a foreign misinformation or disinformation actor, and there's really misinformation is like, oh, shoot, I made a mistake. Disinformation is made up crap out of your butt. Okay, so the disinformation people have a tone to them. And what's fascinating about it is that there is a slight subtlety that is missing in our fine Russian friends. And honestly, I hope some of them listen to this podcast because I'd give them a tip or two on creating disinformation. If you're somebody like me that tracks signatures and tracks communication and tracks styles, one of the things that the Russian actors love to do is get just the tiniest bit dramatic and absurd. And one of the reasons they do it is because they think it's hilarious that Americans fall for it. So they literally are laughing when there's people somewhere reading about it going, sex cult, come on, and I can just see these guys just dying laughing over there. There's also generally an attack on what they would consider to be Americana. Now, the problem with this is if you're coming in as a Russian disinformation actor, heck yes, you're a spy. Heck yes, you've lived here forever. Heck yes, you might be somebody that's been cultivating American culture for a long time. Yet you're missing some subtle points of Americana. First being that the idea of Americana isn't really there hardly, except for in small pockets of people. So if I'm a Russian disinformation actor and I reference Tom Hanks, okay, so I'm just going to pick on the big famous Tom Hanks is a pedophile rumor out there. And again, I'm not meaning to disrespect anybody who actually believes this. Again, I have dear, talented, beautiful, intelligent friends that believe that Tom Hanks is a pedophile. And if that's what you wish to believe, like I said, we all get to have our own tooth fairy. When I look at it psychically through the ethers, I am not finding any pedophilia in Tom Hanks' wheelhouse. And part of the QAnon conspiracy is that he had to run to Greece to get away from an impending hammer coming down from the cabal that was going to snap him up and take him to justice. And this is Donald Trump's war, his day of reckoning, his storm coming that the QAnon folks keep talking about. And he's going to go clean up all these people in this crazy satanic sex ring and blah. Well, the awkwardness here, not only is, Tom Hanks' wife, Rita Wilson, Greek, and not only did they both produce My Big Fat Greek Wedding, and not only did that win Oscars, yet Rita Wilson still has Greek citizenship. She's Greek, you guys. So, of course, they went to Greece because she's Greek. So this doesn't have anything to do with them fleeing to Greece or whatever, even though there's many people who believe this. But again, I am giving you the psychic insight that I'm getting on all of this. So anyhow, let's get back to Russian disinformation actors. And so how does this work, right? Well, if I'm a Russian disinformation actor and I think that Americans are going to fall apart more over the idea of Opie or someone super wholesome being a pedophile, then I can't really use Opie because Opie, those of us that remember, I can't even whistle. Well, that was pathetic. Andy Griffith, right? The Andy Griffith Show. And you've got Opie, who is Ron Howard, the character of Opie. He was this, gosh, pa, kind of Americana, red-headed freckle boy, just the perfect sort of Americana apple pie guy. And boy, good old Ron Howard went on to play that guy as Richie Cunningham as he grew up. So you can think of Tom Hanks as the modern Opie, right? So here you've got these Russian disinformation actors. They're trying to hit at the heart of Americana. They're trying to throw off the American compass of what they believe in. So if you're trying to do that, you go for iconic figures. You go and you definitely go for pedophilia because that is just gross and disgusting and disturbing and is a massive problem, especially with actual child trafficking. It's a real problem. And we're going to get into why this whole QAnon thing is really making it hard to and masking a lot of the actual child trafficking and child trauma situations here. But going back to the Russia disinformation actors, they go for Americana, they go for iconology, and then they pick away at the iconology because these are people who are also trained in psychology, they're trained in algorithms, so they're going to pick at what we Americans think is important, and apple pie, Chevrolet, wholesomeness, Opie, Richie Cunningham, Tom Hanks, he's the new Opie, all right? So as soon as I heard the Tom Hanks rumor, I actually, the first time I heard it, I was like, what? And then the second time I heard it, I actually laughed out loud because this is a person who is not a pedophile, yet it would be so disturbing if they were because he played Mr. Rogers, okay? Are you seeing the obvious pick here? If you're going to pick a mark to go ahead and freak people out in America, pick the guy that's America's face or whatever. So that's one of the ways that you can find disinformation actors is they really do base their storylines off of iconology and go from there. And again, our Russian friends, they just aren't very subtle. They think they're subtle. God bless them. And if they're listening to this podcast, you guys are pretty good. I got to give it to you. But it's the Russian culture. It is not subtle. It's about as heavy as a Mack truck. And if you've ever spoken to a Russian person, they are freaking intense, man. I mean, they are fabulous. They're this nuclear reactor of intensity. It's interesting. My uncle Vic, is half Russian and half German. And his mother, Galina, was a Russian opera singer who was snuck out of Russia by a German soldier in World War II. And they snuck off and got married is what happened. And so, my Uncle Vic is this fabulous guy. He is intense. It's just part of the Russian culture. And Uncle Vic is half Russian. And I met Galina when she was alive, and that lady was probably 4'5", and you just would not mess with that lady. You would not mess with that woman. I mean, she didn't even have to say a word to you. She'd just look at you, man. And I'm like, you could take me down, Galina. All right. I know you're 90, but this could happen. So when we look at what we got going on here with the Russian disinformation actors and how to track the iconology of how they begin to attack us, we start to see all of these crazy, crazy, crazy conspiracies that are going nuts. Now, it's important to note that QAnon was initially started it was seeded with Pizzagate to see how well that would go over. Well, of course, boy, Pizzagate went around like crazy because you say Hillary Clinton is a pedophile. And right there, you have people who can't stand Hillary Clinton, and nobody's really into pedophilia unless there's something going on there that they need to see a professional about. So that was a winning combination. So the disinformation actors are also accruers of data, guys. So they got that data, took care of it, and said, okay, wow, these guys can't stand pedophilia. So we're just going to keep going, and we're going to attack something in American culture that everybody thinks is sacred. So we'll pick on Tom Hanks. And we'll pick on the fact that he actually does go to Greece because his wife is Greek, everybody. Remember? My big fat Greek wedding, all the Oscars. She's from Greece. Okay. So they use what is actually there and they blow it out like crazy. Now, obviously, the Russian disinformation actors are also focusing on current trends. What they're supposed to do, their job is to find out what Americans are freaked out about and then weave in a deal-breaking, I no longer have faith in this system character, like, Tom Hanks. Let's just say I'm completely wrong. Tom Hanks is arrested for massive pedophilia. Do you know how many people would be absolutely just destroyed? Like their idea of life in America would come down in a heap. And obviously, again, Tom Hanks is not a pedophile, gang. Not a pedophile. However, if he were, as you can see, the Russian disinformation actors picked a great person to ruin the integrity or faith of the people in what they believe in. Are you following here? Okay, I think I've beat that horse into the ground and now there's daisies growing out of it. So we're going to move on. So as you can see, the disinformation issue is if you're somebody who tracks communication like I do and patterns like I do, then that's pretty easy to see. Now, QAnon has since been picked up by numerous people, some of them younger that just like to fart with things and want to see the whole situation come down, meaning the United States. I see a lot of QAnon contributors. So what I can tell you is that the QAnon contributors are, a lot of them that I'm seeing, these are millennials. They are Gen Z. They're people that don't even believe this stuff that they're authoring. They just want to see everything come down. They want to see it burn to the ground. And so there's stuff that they put out there, that's some of them are older. There's some Gen X in there and there's some boomers in there. But these are people who all pretend to be Q and have taken this one narrative that was placed out there by the disinformation actors and have now built it into something that people like the president references or Roseanne Barr passes around. And people like Kirstie Alley pass around. I mean, this is literally one of the most successful disinformation urban myth campaigns I have ever seen in my life. So on one hand, I want to be horrified that people believe it at all. Yet again, keep in mind that the Russian disinformation actors play upon the cracks in American culture. So they'll do a little fishing with weird headlines and see which ones really get the most hits, and then they will continue on in that vein. Now, obviously, not a whole lot of people really believed that Hillary Clinton was running a child porn ring out of a pizza parlor. It was ridiculous, and they do that on purpose. They go heavy, hardcore ridiculous to see what catches and how far is too far. However, what caught on was the pedophilia, because it's just god-awful. And they also were cross-referencing that with the fact that there are many reputable organizations in America right now that are working to stop child human trafficking and human trafficking in general. And what we do end up with all of this hashtag save the children stuff and whatnot, we end up with people following disinformation hashtags, following down a complete ruse rabbit hole of a fake cabal and a fake group of Satan worshipers who are passing kids around in Hollywood. So we're all following those hashtag save the children messages thinking, oh God, I got to get on top of this and save the kids. And it's all crap. So we're drawing attention away from the real, think about how brilliant this is. We're drawing attention away from the actual organizations that are trying to limit human trafficking and trying to actually save children from human trafficking. So again, this is a Russian disinformation actor trait, which is to get in there and interrupt the fabric of healing. That's what they do. Chaos, chaos, chaos. Find what works, put out more crazy stuff on what works. And so here we are. So now we've got really, literally, people who work in real undercover rings that are trying to break the child trafficking rings. They're law rings that are trying to get in there and find these people who are committing these crimes. And it's all muddied up because the oh my God, they're getting phone calls about Tom Hanks has the children. So these are pretty wide brushstrokes. I could go way into detail on the psychology of the disinformation. However, what I'm trying to get at here is that once these actors got out there and once they actually were able to get people to bite on all of this stuff, then Americans started getting involved. And we've got a lot of paranoid people in this country. Our government has not been transparent with us for a very long time. We've got government officials doing super creepy things in every administration. So it's easy to sell the public the idea of a cabal that is some sort of like New World Order scene at the very end of like the season 3 of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, where they crawl down a manhole in Los Angeles and there's this demon cult down there eating babies. I mean, it's a little what happened to Rosemary's Baby. Rosemary's Baby. Come on, this has got to be ringing a bell, you guys. Come on, gang. 1960, I think it was 1968. Yeah, 1968. It was before the 70s, and there was all of this experimental cinema coming out. And this art horror film came out called Rosemary's Baby, and it was starring Mia Farrow and a bunch of other people. And basically, the premise was that Mia Farrow moves to this town, and there's weird, creepy people in the town, but they befriend her. And she meets this dude, and the guy really takes to her, and she moves into this weird house, kind of apartment building thing. And the weird, creepy neighbors who've been hovering around that give her the creeps gave her this, good luck charm and a welcome to the neighborhood charm, and it's got this tannis root in it. So we're kind of laying out that there's this satanic witch cult but we don't say that yet because it's 1968, so we're dragging this out, right? If you watch it, just remember it's 1968, so it moves a little slower. But anyway, so pretty much Rosemary gets served. Actually, she and this dude decide that he wants to have a baby with her. And so they're going to have baby night, right? And conceive the baby night. And so one of the people who are in this apartment complex boarding house thing brings Rosemary and her dude some chocolate mousse. And she only takes part of it and throws it out because it tastes weird. And basically she passes out. And while she's in this weird drug-induced haze, because the witch Satan cult knocked her out, obviously, then she's getting, in her mind, she's getting raped by this demon or this devil that's kind of posing as this boyfriend or this spouse or whatever. And all of the weird, creepy people that are part of this apartment building or complex, they're all naked standing around, and she's seeing all this while she's spaced out. So now, and these people, they're all higher ranking people in the town, and they're these wholesome folks, and it's just weird and creepy that there's this, it's like the whole town is this satanic witch cult, basically. So they go, basically it's a big weird thing, and she gets pregnant, and they insist that she go with their friends to go see this, this doctor, obviously. And rather than her own person that she sees, of course, because they're a witch cult and they want her baby. So they want Rosemary's baby. That's the whole point. And of course, she's suffering horrible pains, and it's awful. And oh my God, she doesn't know why she's having such terrible pains, and she's losing weight and all these things you shouldn't do through a pregnancy, right? And so, of course, the doctor's like, hey, you just got some stiff pelvic joints. Don't worry about your demonic baby that you don't think you actually have in your womb. So speed it up to Rosemary freaking out. She wants to go see her doctor. The other doctor's like, no, you can't go see the old doctor. And then suddenly she doesn't have any pain anymore, right? Well, this goes on and on and on. And she has a friend who's trying to warn her that there's a Satan witch coven there that's probably knocked her up with Satan's baby. And this goes on and on and on until finally she goes into labor, and the cult finds her and restrains her. And she kind of passes out in childbirth, and she comes to, and this whole group of people are like, we're sorry about your baby. It's stillborn. But then she hears this demented, really bad 1968 cry that's put through a bunch of really bad processing gear, it's really stupid. So here's this demon baby crying, and Rosemary's like, but I hear a baby. So she runs in there through a secret passageway while the whole satanic cult is there. And the whole satanic cult has been living under an anagram for this weird Satan man that they find out in the history logs is actually a Satanist in town. So here's Rosemary. She walks in, sees her baby, and this one guy who's head of this big cult says, he has his father's eyes. And of course they show the baby, and it's 1968, right? So the baby has these crazy red bulgy eyes, and it's like a doll baby that looks like a bad Chucky had a baby with a Halloween mask. Okay. So here's this red-eyed thing, and it's got horns and pointy fingers, and just looks real, and teeth. It has little pointy teeth and everything. And Rosemary's like, oh my God. But then she hears the baby crying, and she just sits there and starts rocking the cradle. Now, I want you to pay attention to the 1968 American thriller, Rosemary's Baby. Okay? Because, again, when we're talking about Russian disinformation actors, they're going to use key pieces of an actual culture and something that everybody would have in their psyche to draw upon. So, okay, Roman Polanski wrote and directed this, and it was based on the 1967 novel of the same name, which is Rosemary's Rosemary's Baby by Ira Levin. And it had a pretty big cast back in the day. And so think about this. So I'm a Russian disinformation actor. I need to put a story together about Satan cults and babies, and now I'm going to borrow pedophilia from an actual problem of child pornography that's disgusting and horrific that we have in the United States. And that's in the news because we're trying to bust those child porn rings and the human trafficking rings. So we're going to take that. We're going to throw it in with the American preoccupation with witchcraft and Satanism, because let's go back to Salem. Okay. Hello. We haven't had a very good run with anything that's a cult in this country. So that's underwoven in our American culture. A lot of people in America have grown up in Christian churches and in a Christian belief system, and most of those folks know who Satan is. So we're going to draw on that as an American freakout. And then we're going to mix in a frightening cultural relevance, which would be Rosemary's Baby. The idea of this feminist woman getting kidnapped, raped, strapped down, having her baby taken from her. So her body is no longer hers. We're going to use that too, because that's scary. And then we're going to, of course, make it a Satan baby. Now, the people in the town were very powerful. They were powerful business people and famous people in the town. So let's borrow celebrities and put this in there. Are you seeing how this stuff is built, gang? I mean, honestly, it's really not that hard if you decode the way that these disinformation actors compile what they feel are cultural fears in America. Plus, they are working on those fears. Now, Rosemary's Baby, again, 1968. So that's a boomer movie. And a lot of the people, let me ask you a question. Who do you think was the most hooked generation by all the disinformation in 2016? It was the baby boomers, because a lot of the younger people weren't reading the headlines. Some Gen X got sucked into it, but we have been somewhat trained to look at URLs to decide where those URLs are coming from, just to get rid of spam out of our inbox. Some people know that, some don't. A lot of the boomers weren't in that realm of knowledge and were trained to watch for a network news icon like an NBC, Peacock, or the ABC logo, and that means that it's the truth. So you got to remember, the Russian disinformation actors are going to draw upon fears that have been sown into the culture for a long time that would be accessed by a demographic who most easily would fall into those fears. Are you following how to decode the Russian disinformation actor stuff? Okay. Well, now we speed up to 2020. And it's super, super disheartening to me that so many people are getting sucked into really silly stories. Because, gang, we do have a problem with child pornography in the United States. We have a sickening problem with human trafficking in children. And I can't even think about it. I have no idea how it just makes me want to throw up and cry at the same time. I honestly have no idea how those good, amazing men and women and humans fight for the rights of those children and look at this stuff day in and day out and go after these broken people who are harming these children. Those folks who are actually out there breaking up child porn rings and who are implanted they have to immerse themselves in this child porn in order to get in with the people that are trafficking the kids in order to bust them. And I have been told by friends of mine who haven't done that work specifically, but they've done some pretty cool undercover stuff, that those folks who go into doing that, it's almost like it's a holy war for them. And many of those people come out of those assignments and they have years of therapy. A lot of times they take their life. They have a really hard time once that ring is busted, with the knowledge that there are human beings out there, there are adult males out there that are violating little teeny boys and girls all over the place. It's horrific. And so it kind of upsets me, to be honest with you, that we've got this disinformation ring that happens to be piggybacking off an actual horrific problem that we do have. And then I got to wonder, how many of these fake people that get on and pretend to be Q, because now we've got Americans involved in this, right? We've got people who want to see the system topple. So they're younger people making up really outrageous stuff and peddling these stories. And then we've got the original scaffold of the Russian disinformation story, which painted President Donald Trump as faking and going along with the Russia conspiracy in order to get the head of the FBI kind of to shake everybody off his trail so that he then could go into searching for this cabal that is running a child porn ring in Hollywood and in Washington, D.C. Now, listen, there are creepers everywhere, gang. And unfortunately, I'm sure there are some in Hollywood, and I'm sure that there are a lot more in Washington, D.C. However, the cabal thing, the satanic cult, the Save the Children, you guys, that's all bull. I'm sorry. I know we all want to believe that, it's so simple that one guy named Q just outed it all. But if it were really that simple, gang, would we have these problems with human trafficking? Would we have this problem with children disappearing somewhere? No, we wouldn't. And so, even from a logical standpoint, the QAnon stuff is ridiculous. And again, the Russians have a sense of humor that is to die for. I'm not even kidding. So to spin the story that President Trump faked the Russia conspiracy and made it such a big deal, so he could free Robert Mueller and, Mueller could go after the secret cabal. That's part of the plot. And they're laughing the whole time because now the Russia conspiracy is fake, right? And I'm sure I just see them eating pizza and cracking up. I can't help it. So, QAnon, as it's developed and as it's been taken over by paranoid Americans and some people who just like to spread disinformation, and some people really believe all this gospel truth. They believe that QAnon is real. Where we go one, we go all. It's this unity sort of battle cry. And because our government has lied to us so much, it's very easy to paint the government up to be a liar. The problem with this, though, is if you were someone like me who is wired to see all of these little ear tags, it's freaking obvious, okay? It's really obvious. And I know, gang, I know that we as Americans, we want to believe that there's one secret person coming together to tell the truth. But when they do that, they say, hi, my name's, Snowden, and they're in trouble. So, okay, there's Anonymous. What about Anonymous? The big internet group, Anonymous. Think about the name QAnon. Okay, think about the fact that Russian disinformation actors draw on what's working and what is believed. Anonymous is an actual group, and people believe in Anonymous. So QAnon is just borrowing that just a little bit. We're just going to borrow that. It's so formulaic. Honest to God, it's like watching a sitcom spin-off on another network when the first network had a hit show and the second network is, that was a show about a nanny raising 2 children that are impoverished. Well, we're going to have this show about a male nanny raising 2 children that are super rich. And we're just going to, it's a ripoff, cultural ripoff. So where this gets crazy is that QAnon has become almost a religion for a lot of people. And again, hey, you're allowed to believe in whatever tooth fairy you want to. That's why we're in America. And it is such a violent group at this point that's asking people to take a follower's oath. It's like this warrior oath that they were asking people to take, which is super bizarre, that Twitter was banning all these accounts because they were basically trying to raise an army, to be this Q warrior person who Q could call up and raise the army and raise the militia and send everybody in when it was time to back up President Donald Trump when his time came to call the big storm out and raid the thousands of cabal members and all these things. Well, gang, we've had just half a month or whatever until 2020's election takes place. And there have been no big raids in Hollywood, and there have been no big raids in Washington, D.C. And I'm sure the authors of this QAnon story will come out and say, oh my God, the cabal restricted everything, or Trump is going to run to a different country and do it from another country. Because, by the way, I think Donald Trump is still a flight risk, and I think he's bolting as soon as he loses this election. So, I mean, it's just a crazy, crazy thing that's going on. And QAnon became such a call for flat-out violence and masked violence that many social media outlets saw it as sowing not only disinformation but violence and pulled it. And of course, now this is where it gets funny. If you are if you're a Russian disinformation actor mixing in now with hundreds of Americans pretending to be Q and these big fake sightings of celebrities and all these things, then that plays into your narrative perfectly. That the evil deep state found you and shut you all down, I mean, it's just this fan fiction that is playing out in real life. And these folks are showing up with Q's on their chest. And I just want to walk up to them and say, y'all realize a Russian guy started that, right? Because, I mean, I don't care if you don't care, but just letting you know, because this is super awkward, because your Q has an American flag in it. Just saying. We have so much work to do in consciousness in our country. And we've got so much work to actually save the children who are being really trafficked. And why this is a problem is that it's muddying that process and it's making it very difficult. And it's ruining tips. And there's just that people would make to law enforcement because they're following the wrong hashtags. And they literally are, some child is missing and they're putting a hashtag save the children on it. Nobody monitors that but Q people. That's not something, well, probably the law now because Q's gotten a little cray-cray. However, it's dangerous when we begin to believe something that's not true to the point where we make it a religion. And of course, this is all conjecture. There is zero proof for any of this Q stuff. However, people believe it's all 1,000,000% real. Now, how can that be possible? Well, you've got to remember that a large portion of the United States, especially in our more traditional states, again, were raised in a Christian culture. And what is the keystone? What is the absolute keystone of organized religion? You must believe what you can't see. You must feel it as a truth. So the people who adhere to a lot of the QAnon stuff are oftentimes are people that have belonged to more organized religious organizations. It's easier for folks to kind of fall into that patterning of here is a groupthink, here is what we believe, there is like the voice of God, there is some entity that's delivering this anonymous information and asking us to act on it. And if I'm somebody who, say I was part of any religious organization that was very structured, then that's not going to be such a leap for me because I could look at that also as, hey, well, the voice of God is asking me to do things in the Bible. And I have no proof that God was there, but I know God was there. And not to mention, we are just losing faith in our country. And this is what I hope we get back, gang. The reason I'm doing this broadcast on QAnon is, again, not to offend anybody that really believes this. And if you really, really, really believe QAnon is true, you're going to blow this whole podcast off anyway. So no worries, right? I'm just saying for those who are wondering what it is and who it doesn't resonate with, why this is concerning is that we are being heavily manipulated. Not only what got kicked off as these Russian disinformation actors, but we're being heavily manipulated. A lot of these people who are contributing as Q, as I look out through the psychic ethers, are coming in from religious backgrounds. These are people who may believe this is part of a holy war to paint President Donald Trump as this savior who's coming in to save the children. And it's so, to me, it's nonsensical because I can see the energy signatures in it. To others, it makes 100% sense. And in this time frame of great confusion, which we have right now, It's giving some, even if though it's fake, it's giving some touchstone to why the wheels on the cart have flown off in America. And actually, the wheels on the cart have flown off in America because I don't care what political party is rolling with the number one ball in Washington. And we have classist problems. We have economic problems. We have racial problems. We have all kinds of problems in this nation. And I actually get a lot of blowback from, people who are practitioners in my own community, a spiritual community. And I will get some nasty letters sometimes from people saying, well, obviously you're not very enlightened and you don't know what's going on and you're falling into fear. And they'll give me a hard time because I'm talking about stuff like this. And they're like, you really need to listen to QAnon because where we go one, we go all. And it's all of your teachings. It's everything you teach. Which, by the way, I don't have teachings, you guys. I just pass on messages, but that's cool if some people interpret those as teachings. So it's so weird because I'm thinking, do you realize you're mad at me because I don't believe in your tooth fairy? That's weird. That's super weird. Now, here's where this gets interesting. I am someone who believes in God, okay? Not a lot of people still believe in God. Some people believe in God or spirit or universal consciousness. I believe in this lovey entity that's humongous and huge and looks like a nebula in space and has no gender, and we don't really know what God is, but God is love and powerful and empowering and just wants us to have good things. That's my version of God, okay? And somebody else's might be nature or love or a tree or nothing at all or science or a big angry white guy who judges you. We all have this different viewpoint of something that we can't see. And for some, if you can't see it, it's not there. So forget about it, right? So I am somebody who has a belief system. I just have a very hard time believing in energies that I can see make a pattern that just kind of paint a great big old pile of cow poop. So when I've had a lot of practitioners give me blowback about, I'm talking about politics, how could I? I'm a spiritual person. I'm debunking QAnon. How could I do that? Because I'm not seeing that it's the one unifying factor of our times. And by the way, Donald Trump is here to save us, is usually in that sentence. So it's like we've lost our ability to critically examine something in this culture. Because we're looking for an easy-to-identify boogeyman that isn't us. And this is where this gets really rough. You can't launch a QAnon in a country where people are really dealing with their own demons. You can't. Because the whole premise of QAnon is suppression, shame, victimization. Just think about satanic child porn sacrifices and horrible nastiness. That's all shameful and under the covers and nobody knows about it. And to have those kind of demons that we think could be possible in others means that we've got to have some pretty heavy shame in ourselves. Now, I'm not saying everybody's a pedophile or a Satan worshiper. Yet it's phenomenal to me how quickly other people will believe that another human being is honestly a repressed psychotic piece of crap. It's stunning to me. And the only way we go there as human beings is because we are aware of our own frailties and our own ugliness and the monster that lives inside of us all the time, that we keep at bay. And some of us have dealt with our demons in different ways, and others of us haven't dealt with them at all. I look at Donald Trump, and his time is coming to an end. But I look at this, at least as it's coming to an end in terms of his presidency. He's not going to die that I'm aware of. However, when we look at this person, they have demonstrated for us every inhibition. Like it's like inhibitions when there are no holds barred with this person. And Donald Trump has become, as he's gone on in his presidency, and there's all kinds of things going on with him right now. God bless him. Hey, listen, I'm going to interrupt myself. Even if you don't care for this president, okay, think good thoughts for this person's health because the president did have COVID. They let him out way early. And he has been on steroids, which jack you up and wonk your heart out. And I get so many uppers in that guy's system, and I don't know what those uppers are. I don't know if they're prescription drugs that are legal. I don't know if they're illegal, but there's lots of uppers in there mixed with steroids to keep his lungs open. And he's hopped up. He reminds me of the old record execs that used to get super high on coke and just rant and scream, and they'd get all sweaty and their face would be red. And they took a mile a minute and they talk right over the top of you. And hey, you got something to say. I got something to say to you. You got something to say to that. I got something to say. This is the way he was acting in the last debate. And I just thought, oh my God, this man's going to have a heart attack. So even if you don't care for the president, could you please think some good thoughts or say a prayer just to keep his ticker going, at least through this election, because he is beating up his body. And I fear for his kidneys. I fear for his pulmonary system. That guy would rather literally die. He would literally rather die. And this is what I feel in him and see in him every day. And it honestly breaks my heart. I'm not a fan of his. However, he would rather die than lose this election. And he fears he's going to. So he doesn't have much to lose here. He's kind of throwing it all at the kitchen sink and the kitchen window, as it were, out the kitchen window. So even if you know, I know there's a lot of people out there that are like, I wish the president would drop dead, blah. However, if that happens, there's a lot of problems that can ensue. So let's just make sure his ticker keeps on going through this election, and then whatever happens, happens. But the point I'm making is that here is an individual who would rather die than lose an election. Here is an individual who has no inhibition and just lets it all fly and can become any kind of monster at any time. To some, to others, he's a massive hero. He is a liberating American figure to a lot of people. So, it just depends on your lens. It depends on what you're here to do on the planet. And honestly, gang, I think one of the big lessons here with QAnon is, where is the monster? Is it hiding in Hollywood? Is it hiding in Washington, D.C.? Are we all so righteous except for those people? One of the greatest crack-ups I've ever had was reading how, both political parties twist information horribly. And the right side, the right-wing pundits love to talk about the liberal elites, the Hollywood elites. Because, again, if you're going to play on something, play on people's jealousy. And I guarantee you go out somewhere and you offer somebody a big-ass old house right in Malibu with a beautiful gate and a whole staff of servants and somebody to give you a great career in the movies. I bet you that person isn't going to say, no, I do not believe in being out by the elites. I will not take that life. I will live here in my trailer with pride. Seriously? Have you met Americans? So I laugh because it's so easy to demonize those that maybe we wish we were on some level. Like, it might be fun to have 16 Corvettes and live in Malibu and live on the beach and have that life. But maybe I work 6 jobs and I am really super tired and I'm in a weird tax bracket and I have no food in my cupboard. And I have a husband who's not paying me child support and I'm a mom working this out. And there's some jackhole on the television named Elon Musk who is doing something obscene with all of his money. And I'm calling friends of mine to borrow money to pay my rent, So just be wary of, I laugh about the liberal elite thing. Hey, I'm not saying there aren't some snooty celebrities, because there are. And there are snooty liberal celebrities and there are snooty conservative celebrities. However, I laugh about that because the people who are saying that the liberals are the elite, dude, Donald Trump is a billionaire. You don't get much more elite than that, so I guess it's okay. I don't get it. But it's focusing on that which we wish we had. It's easier to demonize that person. And even before Donald Trump was president, gang, there were people who loved to hate him because they were jealous of his wealth. So this just gets weird in 100 different directions. And why I'm bringing this all up and why I'm bringing this in is because the QAnon phenomenon has shown us that we can build a devil on the outside of us and be the Salem witch trial mob and burn the witch. And so we really need to watch that compulsion, because coming up here, gang, in the next, even after the 2020 election, let's just say something crazy happens and Trump wins, and that's just not what it's looking like right now in the ethers. But hey, whatever. It looked like Hillary was going to win, and that didn't happen. But it really, 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 really doesn't look like Trump's going to win this one. So let's just say he does, though. We are still looking at militias all over the place that are just waiting for that QAnon call to come out there and liberate America. That's an actual honest-to-God thing. And they're waiting for their president to call them up. And even if he's not president, there are militias out there, gang, that will step up the minute Donald Trump says go and attack a community, attack a courthouse. And he knows it. He's not a stupid man. You know, I don't agree with his policies. I don't agree with his politics, because he doesn't really have any, except for just, get the biggest rise possible and tweet. And if he was a Democrat, by the way, and he was a Democrat for 25 years, I wasn't a super fan of his during that time either. Not because he was a Democrat. He just wasn't my flavor, and I probably wouldn't be his flavor either. Maybe we'd get along great. I don't know. I never met the guy. But the bottom line here is that when we're looking at these disinformation campaigns, it's important to remember that if we create a witch and we go to burn the witch, and we get so righteous in our belief that that witch is real, and this goes for a million other things. Do I believe that the Russians helped Donald Trump? Yes, I do. Does the Justice Department have information that the Russians were big in election meddling? Yes. Did Obama have that information? Yes. Did we find the smoking gun attaching that right to Donald Trump? Well, no. However, I could say, well, my belief is they helped Donald Trump. And I also saw it in the ethers. So there you go. However, there's a lot of people that will say, well, that's just your belief. It has nothing to do with reality. QAnon is my belief. So why can't I believe in QAnon? And why do I have to believe that the Russians helped Donald Trump? You don't have to believe anything. I'm just simply telling you that if we continue to create monsters outside of us and project that, make a demon out of a group of people, all the right-wing people, or the deplorables, or the libtards, or the liberal elite, or the snowflakes. If we continue to do this, then we play right into giggling Russians on laptops eating pizza who see us as the most reactionary guinea pigs in a bingo machine with ping pong balls shooting all over the place, and us just hopping up and down like little scared guinea pigs. Week, 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 week. And they're laughing away because none of it's true. Is the government creepy sometimes? Yes. Is there a big cabal that's a satanic sex ring? No. What there is, if you would like to watch a movie called The Family, it's a documentary, and I believe it's on Netflix. There is a Christian conservative movement that has been in place for a very long time that goes way, 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 way back. Many, many, many presidents, Republican, Democrat alike, that is training up leaders in local school districts, in local government, in state government, and training up leaders to go into Congress that are part of this religious family group, and they're raising women to be the subservient wives to these people. And this isn't hearsay, and it's not QAnon stuff. I mean, there have been many people that have come forward from the, quote, family and gotten out there and told the story of this. And so this documentary is fascinating. And you see the head of the family, this religious organization, is sitting with all these presidents and talking to them. And it's kind of when the United States Prayer Breakfast was started. And I mean, it's really interesting. So there's not exactly a satanic cabal, yet there is a very calculated movement to place religious people, the Christian religion, to believe that, when it's time, they just fall in like an army and they all believe one thing and they all do one thing. And it's, of course, to save the country. And they teach this really kind of interesting watered down version of Jesus. And you follow Jesus and you do anything for Jesus. Because if one of the members of the family tells you to do it, it's like a mob, then that's the word of Jesus and you need to go do it. Now, this is an actual real organization. So I suggest you watch the documentary The Family if you really want to see some weirdness. There's no pedophilia in it. These aren't people that are having sex with children. It is a calculated religious plant organization that's been going on for 40, 50, 60 years to try to groom leaders that fall in line and act like an army. Now, that is a real thing. So again, if you're Russian, you know this. You know it. So you create its antithesis, the evil cabal that's Satan worshipers. You throw everybody off of what's actually going on. They could care less about this family thing. They don't care. But it's out there. It's knowledge. So one person's devil is another person's angel. Another person's angel is another person's devil. There's a lot of very extreme religious Christian people in America that would love to see a takeover. And so while this QAnon thing is boiling around with fan fiction and weird Tom Hanks stories and all this crap that's just not true, in the meantime, we actually do have conservative organizations that are buying off the Supreme Court. And when I say conservative, okay, I'm not talking about our Republican friends. I'm talking about the weird dark money stuff where they can't trace it and whatnot. And it raises millions of dollars to pay off people to vote in certain ways. And if you really want to see more about that, you can listen to Senator Whitehouse's presentation in the Amy Coney Barrett interview for the Supreme Court. And you can Google it and YouTube it and just watch it. Senator Whitehouse talks about what's been going on in the courts. And really, I want to make a big distinction between saying conservative and this religious agenda, because I'm going to retract my statement about conservative dark money. It's not. It's religious, weird dark money. I have a lot of friends that are just old school Republicans, and I have a lot of good conservative friends. And they're just fiscally conservative, don't tax me too much, blah. What we're looking at with the religious stuff, that's a whole different sect of people. Just like if you're talking about the liberal side of things, just like on the liberal side of the fence, you've got people who just want to see good, strong unions, and you want to see social services in place, and you want to see the country taken care of. And then you've got really radical left people who literally would like to just burn it all down and have it be done. And they're the same people that are on the radical right that want to burn it all down and just see it be done. So fanatics are fanatics. And it doesn't matter what side of the aisle, if you will, the fanaticism is on. There's going to be a brand of fanaticism for anybody who wants to buy it, because this is America. And these messages that have been coming through for me to deliver to you have been kind of on point, you know. And again, I've been getting some not so happy mail from people in my field saying, wow, I used to follow you when you were the feel-good psychic. And I'm like, was I ever the feel-good psychic? Wow. Well, rock on. I guess I was doing something right. Yet my job is to pass on this stuff, and you can do what you want with it. Again, if you're a QAnon believer, this podcast is probably not going to resonate with you all that much. However, it is my job to pass on what's going on and what I see and what I'm being shown. So as we roll into the election, gang, just remember to let's all keep our heads. And like I said, you know, there's a predominant energy that's rolling for Biden right now. God only knows what's actually going to happen, because I tried to look for cheats this time around and things I wasn't anticipating, and the movement of ballots and all sort of other things. And everybody's watching everything like a hawk right now. And they're trying to get it to go to the Supreme Court to argue on vote counts and whatever. Yet I just see that America's kind of done with all the chaos. And if you want to believe in an Illuminati or a cabal, this is what I can tell you. There is a group of people, about 8 of them, that run the world's finances, and they've about had it with the chaos that's been ensuing in the up and down markets. They've been up, but they've also getting ready to go down. And also, America is becoming a hazard. It's becoming a trade hazard. It's becoming an ecological hazard. And the people who run the money are not digging that one of the biggest money contributors in the world is choking up and not playing like it normally should because we're too in chaos. It's wrecking their money opportunities. So if you want to believe in a cabal, there is your cabal. And those 8 people pull the strings. And if they really don't want a president anymore, that person is not going to be there. The vote I'm seeing, though, this is just historic turnouts, and a lot of people are frightened by Donald Trump. A lot of people really still believe in Donald Trump, and they, honest to God, see this person as delivered to the United States by Jesus as a last-ditch attempt to save our country. So, when we go to the polls, just remember, this is America, and everybody gets to have their opinion. And yes, are there organizations that could steal an election outright? Yes, they are. There are. We botched our own election in 2016. There was a little meddling by Russia with the vote machines and whatnot. However, and this is, of course, psychic stuff that I'm receiving. And you can read about it. There were all kinds of articles that sort of disappeared on all that stuff. However, we're allowed to cast our vote. And there will be hundreds of thousands of millions of people that will cast their vote for Biden and cast their vote for Trump. Yet the time frame of this chaotic, insane energy has passed. And so the ability, even if somehow Donald Trump got in a second term, that would be a ruggedly awful transition for him, because this energy of chaos, oppression, obstruction, and again, this has nothing to do with Republicans, and it has nothing to do with conservatism. I am speaking specifically about an individual named Donald Trump and how he chooses to conduct himself and how he chooses to live his life up to this point. I know people who worked on The Apprentice and told the same exact stories of his character as all these people who have quit the White House. So those of us that do media work and knew Donald Trump, I don't know him, but knew of him for all these years, same complaints, man. He's the same dude, okay? So when I talk about Trump, if you're a conservative listening to this, I'm not insulting you. I'm not insulting Republicans or conservatism. I'm not even insulting Trump. I am making an observation that this individual's chaos factor is not going to be consistent with the healing energies that are going to be necessary for us to pull the country together. And this is why I did this broadcast on QAnon, because QAnon is going to keep stirring the pot, and it's now its own religion. And we've got a bunch of the liberal elite celebrities, except for the conservative elite, who are pushing around the Q. And it's going to get a little weird. So please do your best, if you're listening to this podcast, to come into this remainder of our time from now till the end of the year with a big, open, loving heart. And remember that we are America, and everybody gets to cast their vote where they want it. And there's going to be people voting for Biden and people voting for Trump. And it's okay, because that's how America works. So please remember that. This is not a holy war. This is what the disinformation actors want you to believe, that it's a holy war. And believe me, there is disinformation on the left too. If I get one more DCCC text signed by Nancy Pelosi that sounds like, my God, we are on the verge of a black hole that's going to pull us into a bucket of crap and drown us all in the devil's urine, I'm unsubscribing. As a matter of fact, I'm about ready to. I can't take it. I can't take the over-the-top, America is dying. Is it? Yeah, but it's not all the fault of one person. It's the fault of millions and millions and millions of us that are not dealing with our own monsters in the mirror. And, am I going to vote for Donald Trump? Well, I think it's pretty obviously I'm not. I got family members that are. And we laughed about the fact that we're going to cancel each other's vote out. It's kind of hilarious, actually. Welcome to America, right? So it's fine. Do your thing. Yet what I would ask you to do before you go believing in witch hunts and before we go raising militias on absolutely no information at all, please remember that this is the time frame of great peace of great healing, of literally of rebirth. 2021 is going to be the year of rebirth. Oh, apparently it's going to be the year of rebirth. Okay, well, we're hearing that for the first time. Hello, everybody. From the angelic realm, 2021 is going to be the year of rebirth. And when we birth, it's kind of messy. And it's kind of nasty. And rebirthing is doing it twice. So we're bringing a new country in. In order to do that, we're going to have to forgive. We're going to have to move forward. We're going to have to build bridges. Lots of things are going to happen. And a lot of people are going to get sucked down the Q hole. Q hole. That's good. Hey, we gotta remember that one. It's like, is your head up your Q hole? That's a good one. All right. So just keep your head on straight, gang. And I've really enjoyed this time with you. Thank you for letting me share with you some of the key components of recognizing a Russian disinformation actor. There's different ones. And it's very interesting because QAnon has now spread way over to really right-wing Germany. Oh, there's a shock. And they are adopting it over there as a secret credo and just making it kind of a German version of everything. So people who want to believe in a devil will, people who want to believe in a witch will, just remember that when we read about the Salem witch hunts, most of us roll our eyes in this time frame, and we don't really want to become part of that history 200 years from now, where people are rolling their eyes at us, right? So do your best to discern everything in this time frame. Be a good person, gang. Thank you for listening. I know this was a whole bunch, this podcast, and I will see you next podcast.